Alright, here we are recording once again, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you are already familiar with it. This is the personal channel for A.W. Finnegan, Adam W. Finnegan, the author of The Sleeper Agent, The Rise of Lyme Disease, Chronic Illness, and the Great Imitator Antigens of Biological Warfare. So, last night had a very good interview with Judyth Baker, the former girlfriend of Lee Harvey Oswald, who worked in biological weapons development at Tulane Medical School under Dr. Alton Oshner. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald was helping her, and he was an intelligence guy working for the CIA. Now, she wrote a book called Me and Lee, How I Came to Know, Love, and Lose Lee Harvey Oswald. And it shows, she tells a story and can show that Lee Harvey Oswald was completely innocent. He did not kill Kennedy, and he actually knew that they were going to try to pin it on him, and he knew that they were going to try to kill him as well. And he talked about a criminal element that had been operating in the government that was planning to off Kennedy. He went out there to protect JFK, but then got blamed for it, and then he was assassinated not long after by Jack Ruby, which there's all sorts of other stuff involved. You've got to read. My publishing company, whom I work for, Trine Day. I work for Trine Day. I'm part of the Trine Day staff now. They have done some of the most amazing books on the JFK assassination. And all of them are very credible. A lot of them are written by people, who are on the inside, who worked in government. And so it's not just like a bunch of crackpots, as it is so, commonly believed by the masses, the average person. Oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist. That's an easy thing to say when you don't want to look at the information and when it's too much of a disturbing reality. It's so easy to just say, oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist, and just slander them without looking at their information. If you look at, take, for example, my book, and you look through all of the footnotes, all of the citations, I believe there's over 1,000 citations in that book, all to official documentation. I do not cite just like random websites on the internet. I go to the official documents, from the Central Intelligence Agency, from the German archives and over there overseas, and from the German universities, like the papers, the scientific publications from the German universities, and also available on PubMed. I link to official news outlets that people that call everybody conspiracy theorists would consider official news sources, like the New York Times and things like that, so that nobody can take a look at it and say, well, you're linking to this, site that is conspiracy theory. And it's not an official news source. It's fake news. No, I do not link to any of that stuff. I am very thorough, and I link only. I try to go right to the source. I try to go, to the government documents, to the, just all official publications. Okay? So yeah, having a great summer. This is, meeting her was amazing. She is such an amazing woman. And, it's great. I hope everybody out there is having a fantastic summer. And, of course, I am really sore today from doing the biking, the BMX biking, and I've got so many views on that little short that I posted where I was doing the 180s over in Orleans. I wish I had gone out there sooner. I wish I started making that my routine way long ago. It's so nice going out there is really nice. And I go to that parking lot. It's got like Dunkin' Donuts, Staples, and then behind it's got this gym where I go, and there's so many beautiful girls. I talk to a lot of them, and a lot of them love the BMX biking and always getting smiles and practicing my 180s in the parking lot. And I'll go up to some of them and I talk to them, and I made this thing a long time ago called the angel ticket, right? It's so you go up to a girl, you go, you say what's up, and say, you can't be walking around like this. And she said, what do you mean? Like, walking around looking like an angel? You can't be doing that. And then and then you say, I'm gonna have to write you up, right? Oh man, it's just so amusing to me. It works like a charm. I just have so much fun with that. I actually created it on Adobe Photoshop and printed up the pads. Oh man, it was hilarious. Oh, I am such an idiot. I mean, I'm such a dork. Like I do stuff just to amuse myself. Many times, like I'll write people letters just to amuse myself. It's just like ridiculous. But my summer's going good, needless to say. But I am reposting this. I was so happy last night to have finally met her, and I asked Sean, I said, can I post this? Because this is just a fantastic interview. And this is like, for those people who find it hard to believe, and say, I don't like what you say. It's like, hey, it's not just me saying it. It's like you can ask somebody who actually worked on the biological warfare program, which is Judyth Vary Baker. Okay? And she was like, wow, I finally met somebody who understands this stuff. Yeah, because I studied Eric Traub's work for years. He was the all-star bioweaponeer who understood this stuff better than anybody. So it's not surprising. And it's not like it's not like I'm special. I went and I researched and sought it all out, but at the same time, it did kind of take a higher intelligence to figure this out. And I'm really intelligent, although I've got my downsides too. And, like growing up, I was just like a misfit, even though I was really smart. And like later on, I was able to kind of take hold of that intelligence and start using it for good, which is what I'm doing here. And it's a shame that people don't appreciate it at all. They're, I don't like what you say, oh, sorry, I worked my butt off to try to expose things that nobody wants to look at, that nobody wants to think about, even though it's happening right under our noses, that it's affecting all of us. It's like, oh, sorry that I'm for humanity. Sorry that I'm trying to, do some of those, to cover some of those dark areas that other people don't want to cover for the best of humanity. I'm sorry that I do that, What do you want me to say? It's ridiculous. But this is the ways. These are the ways of this reality. These are the ways of this world, this physical reality. And they often say that darkness and evil rules the physical realm. Or Lucifer, which is kind of a symbol of the the power hungry dark forces that rule this world. So, without further ado, here is my interview with John O'Loughlin on Macduff Lives with Judyth Vary Baker. Enjoy.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to Macduff Lives. And boy, I'm excited tonight. This is my debut of Judyth Vary Baker on the show, and I'm absolutely just delighted to bring together for the first time A.W. Finnegan, the author of The Sleeper Agent, with with Judy Berry Baker, whose many books have been on my shelves for a number of years, and she's always bringing out new material and helping the rest of us to understand what really went on. So welcome to you, and I'm going to everybody by first names, Adam and Judy and John. And so with that, let's introduce Adam Finnegan to Judy Baker, and let's see how you guys introduce yourselves to one another. I'm excited to hear you guys interact.
Yeah.
Go, John.
Yeah.
Male dominance.
It's really nice to hear that you read my book. I was very surprised, and I'm glad. And I've gone through Me and Lee. I've gone through, what was the other ones?
Lee Harvey Oswald and me.
Yeah.
No,
David Ferry.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, the Me and Lee one I went through like pretty good. So I was very, and I have read Dr. Mary's Monkey, so I'm very familiar with with your work. And,
well, that's wonderful. Hold on.
Yeah,
Here.
the context. It was very sad going through Me and Lee. You know, it was like, wow. You know, when you had that conversation with him, the last conversation with him, man, I was just like, I was so sad. It just,
yeah, he knew he was going to die. Can you imagine talking to somebody who knows that they're going to kill him?
And he knew that they were going to blame him, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they? Yeah, they knew they were going to try to blame him for Kennedy's death.
In July, he realized that he could be used as a patsy.
Man, that poor guy. And
you know,
and I don't. He may have not. He may have not. It's my opinion that he may not have died from that gunshot wound, but that once he was shot and in the hospital, they may have killed him. Like further.
Well, yes, and we have the receipt, from the ambulance that shows they didn't give him oxygen when they had it present. They didn't give him oxygen in the ambulance.
Wow.
And they gave him.
That's
they
terrible.
started giving him blood before they typed him.
Oh, and that's you get a really bad shock from that, right? If it's the wrong blood, you get
we don't know. I mean, they finally were giving the right blood, but we don't know how much of that he got. And of course, he bled out real fast. They weren't clamping it properly. Also, they cut him open. He had no anesthesia when they cut him open.
Oh my God!
They called it oxygen anesthesia, which is ridiculous. You get enough oxygen to wake up.
That is nuts. Ow, poor guy. Yeah. Poor guy.
There's so many things they did, and we know in that when he was in the ambulance, they pushed out his chest like artificial. That of course made him bleed harder and faster.
Oh.
He actually there's evidence that he tried to push their hands away, even as weak as he was. People say the media, of course, lied and said he was unconscious when he was placed in the ambulance. That is not true. You can see his hands clenched. You can't clench your hand when you're unconscious.
Boy, they really did. They really did him in. That's just. But I'm glad that at least for those who care, that the truth is coming out. That that he's innocent. You could go through the book. It's like anybody who doesn't know that. It's like go read Me and Lee. I mean,
and now we have that. Realized Me and Lee. By the way, I've talked with Trying Day. Now, in between, I updated with a hardcover that's very expensive to produce. Anyway, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, which is the update of Me and Lee. It's its alternate title, by the way, in the National Archives and so on. But this has new evidence, new witnesses, more of the same. And also, I'll show you something. Just a second. I'll have to get to it.
Sure. Yeah, and I would love at some point for you to send me an autographed copy. I'll buy it from you. But
when I can afford it, I'll send you a free copy. I just can't do that.
I can send you the money. That's no problem.
So in the middle of the book, for example, we have color documents and everything.
Yeah.
And now here's the good news. Trying Day is going to be producing Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, the updated version of Me and Lee, as paperback. This here was produced so we can get it into libraries and to academia and so on. All right, filled with all. But I have to tell you that the first time we tried to, I'm never going to make a penny on this. First time we tried, I did not do this, sir. This book was, I don't know whether you can see that pages were ruined. The some of the bindings on some of it was printed upside down inside the book and so on.
Oh my goodness.
So we had 5,000 ruined copies.
Are you kidding me? Wow, they should fix that for like free or whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, we had to, I had to sign something, okay? So I can't talk about it very much.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But they replaced some of them.
Okay.
So, but we hope to have a fundraiser on some of these busted and broken books because this tampering, you know, that was going on. Thousands of ruined books. Even if I sell all the books that we raised to get this special edition, even if we do that, we'll barely break even after.
Yeah, you make nothing
because we lost all those other ones.
And as it is, authors don't make much, and it's like
no, and
for the amount of work we do, it's like
no, they have no concept. People don't. Well, especially a lot of authors, as you know, they use co-authors, they use editors, and so on.
Yeah.
Now Ed Haslam heavily edited Me and Lee because a lot of the things I put in there at that time I couldn't prove. Since then, many more files have come out and I've been able to prove. That's the advantage of Lee Harvey Oswald and me.
Yeah.
So there are documents and then, of course, new witnesses such as Claudia Roddick and others. Claudia, you know, went online and went on conferences twice because she was the granddaughter of Susie Hanover, my landlady at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She saw Lee at my apartment so much, she thought he lived there.
Yeah.
She's on record for that. So we have all these people. I mean, I'm going to be very specific. James Files contends that he shot John Kennedy, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was the driver for Nicoletti and all this.
Yeah.
He has not a single witness, and yet he's everywhere, you know, and mentioned all over the place.
Yeah.
One witness. I have a bunch of them, and you still find online 25-year-old things saying I have no witnesses, I have no evidence, and so on. It simply is not true. Yeah. So, you know, the stuff they put on the internet lasts there forever. And when I did a rebuttal, that got removed.
Mm-hmm.
It goes.
Yeah.
So
I believe
that's why books are so important instead of having everything online.
Yeah.
Because they can change things online. I wrote to one person that they asked me, was Lee circumcised? And I wrote that Lee was circumcised. And they said, here's her email. They put Lee was circumcised, parentheses, not. They added the parentheses, not to my email. Yeah. Wow. So that's what they do.
That's like the paperclip, you know, when Operation Paperclip and the original file would say so and so is a Nazi, and by the time it got to the States, somebody had put not above the is, so it says it's not a Nazi. So okay, let them in.
Yep, that's.
Yeah, books are very important. That's why I'm a big fan of books. You know, I make it unanimous. I'm a huge fan of books, and I always buy them. I buy them 3 or 4 a month, and really love to have them because you know who knows when they're going to pull the plug on the internet and yeah,
you know,
and then just.
And changing is what Judy said, but let me make sure that I got something straight about Judy's book, though, because I just went to Amazon to check to see, and you do have the hardback version
yes.
for Amazon. Now, is that one good, or is that
No, that's good, but it took 3 years, 3 years to get it on Amazon. They kept saying I wasn't me and that I had stolen my own book and all kinds of things. Yeah. Wow. I was living overseas. I got stuck here because of COVID. And because I had a new address and I wasn't living overseas, they pretended it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I got trapped here. I lost my home in Sweden. I lived there 13 years. Now, don't get me wrong. I never got citizenship because of pressures against me and everything.
Yeah.
So every 90 days. Now, how would you like to live for 13 years? Every 90 days, I had to leave the EU and live somewhere else. I went to Turkey. I went to Egypt. I went to South Macedonia. Went to even to Andorra, everywhere like that. And sometimes, of course, in Novembers, I would go to the United States, and I always had bodyguards.
Yeah.
So that's the way it was. Now I'm living in the United States, used all my resources, got trapped here, lost my home in Sweden. You can't pay I had to pay huge rental. You know why? I have no debt. So I have no credit cards. Without credit cards, you cannot rent an apartment. You have no credit history. So, yeah. So if you don't have debt, you don't have a credit history, and the apartment's going to cost you a lot more. You have to put a whole bunch of money down, you know. So the last apartment I was in, they promised that the rent wasn't going to go up. They went up $400 a month. My friends and my son and others, they finally got together, and I just got moved into a permanent place that I half own, and they can't kick me out of here. So wish me luck. I'm living in the Lion's Mouth near Dallas. It's just like the Starship. Think about this. When you have Star Wars, remember that little tiny ship that's sitting right there on top of the great big Darth Vader's huge, enormous, sitting there. They don't know he's there. That's me.
Wow. So and since you read the book, you must have seen all of the stuff about cancer, and viruses, and Traub's early work with lymphocytic choroidal meningitis.
What a scumbag! Excuse my language, but gosh.
He would raise the cancer rate to 50%. He noticed in the natural mouse population. He noticed, but that was a virus that could also get humans, and it was kind of like an animal model, but the same thing could happen. Yeah, I mean, it was an animal model, but that virus could also infect humans.
Well, that's the thing. We, of course, you recognize that I have kept up with the virology. I recognize the genome, the problems with the genome, the so-called COVID virus, that the way it was put together overseas. They had actually the whole genome was available. Once I came here, I couldn't access the whole genome anymore.
Yeah, I remember.
We were held back.
I remember early on when they did that, when they released the genome for it. Yeah,
so if you know the patterns, I talk about like it's a pattern that you would see, a repetitive pattern. Most of that enormous virus is huge.
Yeah, and
respiratory virus.
It carried that same antigen that I was talking about that caused that immune tolerance, and there was actually a paper about how it was carrying the same thing that's found on Borrelia burgdorferi, that antigen. It's also found on HIV, and several other things. It's that nasty lipid that really throws the immune system into disarray, and that's why this long
it's
COVID
wonderful
thing.
to talk to somebody who understands. So you can understand when I saw that genome and I saw what they did right there, through the cleavage, that area. It stood out like a sore thumb. You could tell it had been manipulated. There's no way an animal would have survived that much manipulation. It had to have been inserted by human beings. And when I saw that, oh boy. So I put together a handbook in March of 2020, before they were still talking about everything. I already knew because of my own experiences that this had to come from Fort Detrick and it had to go through University of North Carolina. So I put that up in March. And that from the University of North Carolina, it went to Wuhan. And this Wuhan scientist came from University of North Carolina, where they'd been for a number of years.
Yeah.
And anti-Chinese sentiment kicked them out. I'm sure they were just thrilled to go to Wuhan and sort of leak this thing out, you know?
Yeah. It's got that same antigen, and it's a nasty one. And every time they try to make a vax for it, it just goes really badly. And there's so many, they use it in so many of them. But it's a nightmare. And so limericks, right? And there's a whole chapter about limericks in the end. That was basically the same thing, only COVID vaccine programs your cells to make that rather than just putting it in the vaccine. They make it some kind of, somebody I know, I forget who it was, said this is like a transfection. It's like giving you an infection to produce that spike protein, which throws your immune system into disarray, and it causes that immune tolerance. And actually, they knew that it was going to cause that immune tolerance, and they were actually talking about. Of course, they did. They were talking about using immune tolerance as a defense strategy. It's like, okay, so it could, because when that happens, it's kind of like your immune system goes off grid, and contrary to what people might think, is like you don't really have outward symptoms because your immune system's just shot. And so you don't get that massive inflammation, but it's in your central nervous system. It's proliferating your organs and everything else. It may even clear from the blood, but it goes into your brain. It goes into, and it goes into your organs. And that was one of the things that Eric Traub was really focused on, was getting viruses to clear from the blood, but attack your central nervous system and organs so that they couldn't diagnose it with blood work, but yet it's destroying you from the inside out.
Finnegan, it's great to see your take on this. I would like to go a little bit further, or shall we say it, elaborate a little bit in that.
Absolutely.
The reason that ivermectin and quercetin and even quinine, by the way, which I hate to tell people about it because I don't want to see it go off the shelves or get real expensive. But all of these antiparasitics are working because they created the virus to act like a parasite, in that it would be tolerated by the system rather than eliminated, just like we tolerate roundworms and everything else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and that's kind of like
stealth. It's like a stealth, like pretending to be a parasite when it's really a virus. And that's why they're saying, this virus doesn't exist. Oh, yes, it does. But it's cloaked like a parasite.
Yeah, it's very stealth. And that was his whole thing. Eric Traub's whole thing was stealth weapons. And like I said, he's trying to get it so it'd clear from the blood. It wouldn't be floating around, but it would be attached to your central nervous.
So the title of your book, again, show it to everybody.
Yeah, the sleeper agent, the
rise sleeper agent. It could say the stealth agent, you see.
Yeah, I used the sleeper agent because it was almost like, so it was a double meaning. It was like, it was about that antigen being a sleeper agent, where it's putting your immune system to sleep, but it was also about Eric Traub being a double agent because he came over here. We put him on the top of the biological warfare program. Basically, we were taking orders from him. Basically, like, he was telling them, do these simulant tests, do these open air simulant tests with this Serratia marcescens bacteria that I weaponized with this pox virus.
So we got used to weaponizing things on our own people.
Yeah,
it's a Nazi concept.
Yeah, it is, and that so a lot of our biodefense approaches actually are at the advice of him. So we did those open air tests, and so I think he provided that Serratia marcescens. That's that bacteria that turns everything red. Well, I have it in my book. He weaponized it in 1940 with this pox virus, and he probably had those weaponized strains. He's like, here, this is totally harmless. Take this, spray it all over the place, spray it all over San Francisco. People started dying. People started getting these nasty resistant infections because what he basically did was he gave it antibiotic resistance at the same time. And it was a really nasty, now it's considered a human pathogen. And I'm pretty sure they still use it because these simulant tests are still going on today.
Oh yeah, these people are more go by the playbook and copycat and everything because they're not smart enough really to do their own research and they have to hire techs who don't know what they're doing to say, look, do this little tweak for us, and that kind of thing.
I've often made the point that they are stupid, like they're really dumb.
Yep.
And that's why they got to go to guys like Eric Traub and Kurt Blom, the other guy who was advising them. And I mean, this guy was Eric Traub was running circles around these people. They had no idea, at least to my knowledge, what he was really up to. He's like, oh yeah, he takes the Lyme disease, puts it in the ticks. He's like, oh, you're going to see a bullseye rash, but it's harmless. Because the whole idea was anything that can cause immune tolerance is harmless, and it's actually a form of immunity to them.
Well, we can go to Southern. What is it? Southern. How do you pronounce his name? Who worked at New York with the Holocaust survivors that were indigent, and they had them in the hospital. They were, had cancer and all. He goes and injects them. All right, with cancer. Oh. And in my new book, the updated book, we have him standing right next to George Moore, my mentor at Roswell Park. I worked in his private lab. And by the way, a few months ago, someone stepped forward. He had also worked for those that said, oh, come on, you worked in a private lab and just a couple of you. And I had a witness step forward who also had the same experience I had when he was a precocious, now he was not as young as I was. He was like 21 and I was at that time 18. But the point is, he also had that same experience with George Moore, the director of Roswell Park, who had like 800 scientists working under him and Dr. Moran and so on. And James T. Grace, I worked with Grace. Grace, by the way, tried to duplicate what I did. Took him 4 years to duplicate what I did in high school. Because I worked with germ-free mice. I'm mentioning this because I approached everything with new eyes and wasn't taught the protocol. And therefore, a lot of it I didn't know about and did my own thinking. So I was able to get mice lung cancer in 7 days, the germ-free mice, with controlled, the substances were basically based on cigarette compounds that were aerosol. That aerosol is the key, as you know, is spreading these viruses and so on. Yeah. And so it took 4 years to duplicate it. The reason I'm mentioning that is that Southern, or however you pronounce his name, and anyway, you can trace what he did. He sent that stuff to us by mail. It was flown to us to New Orleans from New York.
Was it on ice?
Huh?
It was on ice?
No, these were reports about what he had done.
Oh, okay.
So we realized because these injections would cause necrosis that you couldn't inject this material at that time intramuscularly. You had to do it intravenously. Yeah. So that was the key. And now, of course, they can do it the other way. But at the time, that's why Jack Ruby knew he had been injected with cancer cells. Because he had an injection. He knew it went into his vein. He knew that you have to use a large needle because it has to be a large bore because it's like gelatin practically, these cancer cells, and it'll stick in a regular needle. So that's painful. So he knew. And of course, they all told him he was lying. Why? Because they had MK Ultra people come down. We had to inject him with this material. And the upshot of it is, why did he know this? Because the mafia and the CIA were working together to off Castro. They both had the same goal in mind. But the weaponization of cancer, that what we used was this SV40 monkey virus. And John, you interviewed Edward T. Haslam, who explained a lot about our work with the linear particle accelerator and so on. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we can trace the SV40 monkey virus and also the prototypes and the mutations and everything. We did gain of function. We were the first really to do gain of function. And so they started using that approach. And what do we find in the COVID vaccines when they're talking about these particles, okay, that excite the immune system? They put that in because the COVID vaccine virus part that the spike protein, it was not enough to make it go above about 30%, 37%.
Yeah.
So what did they add? They add chopped up pieces of SP40 monkey virus, which is carcinogenic, and it's up to 50% of the vaccine is loaded with this stuff. And it's a DNA stuff. Yeah. And this virus it's a tiny virus, very small, it could actually reassemble itself, and then you're going to get cancer.
Yeah. And there's plenty of people coming down with it now.
Well, I told them that it would happen.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's happening. And of course, a lot of these cancers are going to be heart, lung, and pancreas, and of course, prostate and bone cancer. It's heartbreaking to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And to see how many people are still being told, come get your next shot,
Yeah. And then they're doing it, and they're getting them. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's crazy.
Well, one of the few countries over in EU, they're stopping it, Yeah.
I remember, before they had rolled it out, I knew all about this antigen. Yeah. I knew what it does. I said the cancer's going to go skyrocket. The cancer rate's going to skyrocket. All this stuff.
Didn't you get shut down for saying that? I got shut down. I was talking through email, right, with John Loftus, the guy who wrote the introduction to my book, the Justice Department guy, the first one to bring out the biological warfare connection to Lyme disease in his book, The Belarus Secret. Well, I was like trying to tell him, I was like, man, they got to stop this. This is like the worst possible solution to this problem. Look what they're doing with bird flu, John, and you too.
Yeah,
look what's happening with bird flu. This is ridiculous. That's one of the most insanely simple and innocuous viruses you could ever have for avian. The birds just don't even get sick from it. And now, of course, they've weaponized it. And they'll take a PCR test and say, "Oh, you've got a bird here." Yeah. It's a concept I'm trying to get across to everybody right now, because they're killing millions of birds. And here's what happens. When they kill them all off, they can keep killing them off. You know why? If they take a whole flock and sequester it and find out which ones can fight this virus and take those animals, they could eradicate it, but they don't want to eradicate it. They want to eradicate all the chickens. Chicken price goes up. Tyson Foods is real happy. So is China. Okay. And we're hungry. They need to sequester these flocks that they find. They probably actually sneak in the virus and give it to it and get their positive, because they have a lot of incentive to kill off our food supplies. Seriously.
Yeah.
So we need to get across the concept that they have got to sequester these flocks, see which ones survive, and then see how they survive. That's the way you eradicate this. You don't kill off the whole flock.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what they're doing?
It's terrible. Yeah, and I remember going back to that COVID vaccine, I remember, and I felt like I had anxiety, because it's like knowing about a bioterror attack that you can't do anything about stopping, And I just felt like, man, I try to tell him. He didn't really understand, because it's like, no matter how many times I tell people, it's like, it just really doesn't sink in.
Well, first of all, they're not reading. Second, they haven't been taught to think for a long time. I have a few heroes. I'm very proud of Elon Musk for allowing both sides to be heard of this thing. It obviously becomes pretty clear when Fauci, how he lies and what he's done.
He's a dirtbag,
He's done that for decades.
He was involved with the Lymerix vaccine.
Oh, he goes all the way back, and everything he did was wrong.
I know. I think he was probably working to sabotage us. I mean, they basically, if you look at the last chapter of my book where I talk about the polio vax and all of that, the people that are, and how, MP Chumakov's son is running vaccine safety and review at the FDA. It's like, are you kidding me? And so it's
that's beautiful. Beautiful what you've done and exposed.
Yeah, it's like
And we have
the
so many
public health
people
system.
suffering.
Public health system's been weaponized against us. It's like weaponized, used
hard
as a
for
weapon
people to
against.
understand
I know
the
people come up to me and they
financial
say,
incentives.
people
And
come up
they
to me.
often they think they're doing a good job in reducing the population. And of course, the most stupid people will be eliminated. So they're actually, they look at it as, from a eugenics viewpoint, the smart people will avoid these shots and you're going to end up with a better human race. So they're culling the herd, aren't they? Yeah.
That's a good point.
John, I got that smile on your face. What are you thinking?
Yeah. We haven't heard from you much.
I'm smiling because I'm very much enjoying the conversation, and this is just what I wanted. I wanted to be able to sit back and listen to you two share your thoughts and a couple of minds that I really admire. So I was just thinking of the quote that you have from Jonas Salk on that very point about who's going to survive.
The survival of the wisest, and it's like so in your face. Like people come up to me that I work my butt off to do this kind of research and get this information to people, and it's like people say, I don't like what you say. You know what I mean? It's like oh, thanks. That's the thanks I get. You know what I mean?
Oh no, you're gonna get death threats. If you're really good, you're gonna get death threats. So be careful.
Yeah, and what was it? It was Jonas Salk. He said, I'll even read the quote here. He said, a major threat to the species is attributed to the increasing size of the human population, which, in turn, is ascribed to the successes in science and technology. This explanation has evoked an attack upon science and the exploitation of its technology, to the development of which are attributed many adverse effects upon the human species, upon other forms of life. Polluters who befoul the planet and affect the quality of life are regarded as a threat to the present and future equilibrium of the species and of the planet. Those who consider themselves on the side of nature, and therefore of the human species, see others in opposition to both nature and man. Hence, we are to be concerned not only with man's relationship to nature, but with man's relationship to himself. So he's basically saying that advances in science and technology that keep life going for people and are good and heal people are a threat to the current equilibrium, meaning we have too many people on the planet, so we don't want people surviving. And he goes on to say in that book how, well, now we have these RNA viruses that can alter the genes in an advantageous way or a disadvantageous way. We
have our handle. We have our hands right on the lever. Which goes. Yeah.
And it's like not unlike the SV40 virus that was contaminating his vaccine that he didn't know about. You know what I mean? And he's talking about how and he starts describing immune tolerance. He's and how that when they do this to the genes, when they use these RNA viruses, that it passes to the next generation.
Well, there you go. Those two concepts, tolerance and resistance. To make all this really happen, you want to make it so it's tolerated and you don't have resistance. Resistance is our natural response, of course, to any we call insult, to the immune system, to the whole system. And they don't want that. They want you, of course, to tolerate. So every booster that comes along actually makes you tolerate. So then they're going to get, for sure, they're going to get COVID, for example. Biden, who's had 6 or 7 shots now, is suffering from still another attack of COVID. Of course, the COVID to survive in the human species is weaker every time. So then what do they have to do? They have to go and create a new one, because of course, as it mutates, it gets less and less difficult to handle.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that. So they have to go into bird flu. We're into monkeypox. We're into camel coup. I mean, whatever you want to call it. They've been doing this a long time. There's money to be made. And as you know, the WHO ordered the United States to purchase bird flu vaccines when we had a single 10 case.
Yeah.
We had
And I'm pretty
in 3 years.
I'm pretty sure they use, if I'm not mistaken, I think they may still use Eric Traub's vaccine formula.
Well, the reason they do use that formula, I believe you're correct, is that they're not bright enough and innovative enough to go and try new things.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
All the way back, we have not had many advancements. We're just we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, and the way they
very corrupt.
The way they train the scientists now, they teach them not to think. It's like these academic universities. They teach people not to think. And so it makes innovation very difficult when you have these drones of people just doing what they're told to do, basically. The way they were taught is like you do what you're told, don't think for yourself. And and that's kind of like not only in medicine and science, but just the entire academic field is kind of like that,
Well, I'm sure we can sail through these so-called courses, medical courses they have. They're just and they've been simplified more and more. You can go more and more often to AI, or you can go to the internet. And you know what? I'm going to give you an example. Now, I found out, I got curious about Elon Musk. I found out he's a good guy, okay? Now, you're going to hear nothing but, basically, if you hear bad stuff about people, they're at the top, they're probably good. That's how bad it is, all right? It's amazing. Yeah. So Musk, early on, he actually got into the field and started a small company trying to help solve the COVID vaccine problem, and basically came up with, of course, the figure is so common, about 37% efficacy is all you're going to get. A response, you can't sell a vaccine that's only 1/3 effective, if that, because that's just a response. What's funny is, so he pulled out, he said, forget this. But not everybody else. What they did is, they packed the SB40 monkey virus chopped up on top of it to create a false padding so it would respond to 90% or whatever. Yeah. That was to the monkey virus, not to the COVID spike protein. Yeah. And so what did we have then? Of course, it goes down and down and down, till we hit bottom, and it's not effective at all. I mean, they start out saying, this thing is going to wipe out the virus. Then they say, well, it's not going to stop transmission. The next thing they say, of course, it's worthless. Worthless. So what do they think they're going to do? Does that stop them? No, they're using messenger RNAs. They've changed all the vaccines over. Now, when I was a kid, I'm trying to get this message so people can hear it everywhere and understand. I had 6 shots. Maybe my lifetime I had 8 shots. Okay. The last year, like for I never had the flu shot. Did you ever get the flu shot? Ever?
No,
Did you?
My mom's doctor told her not to get it. He's like, they make me get it.
That's right.
And he said, don't get it.
That's right. And our military are forced to take all these shots, and they're so ill, sick, and wounded. They're being wounded by our own medical services.
They had the anthrax shots. Those really got people. I remember the whole Gulf War syndrome. This is related to it. The anthrax and smallpox vaccines that they were given, and also they found the SV40 in the adenovirus vaccines that were given to the military.
Well, because this dirty, chopped up, and I say it's chopped up because they think this is a very tiny DNA virus. So tiny that if you put pieces together, just throw them in the same soup, they're going to reassemble.
Yeah.
How dare they act like they won't? If it were a complex virus, it would be different. But these are so tiny. The SV40 monkey virus is the first virus, except for the polio virus, that was reassembled artificially.
Yeah. I have documents where the Plum Island guy, the first director, M.S. Shahan. Oh no! It was J.J. Callis, the second one. He was attending those early recombinant DNA conferences, and they were kind of, configuring the litigation behind everything, and they were like, okay, permission is granted for you to start adding sequences of the SV40 into foot and mouth disease virus. And he was talking about how foot and mouth disease itself is something that is just a real problem in contaminating the cell cultures that they're using for vaccines. And he was saying that sometimes outbreaks actually start from these viruses that escape vaccine factories. And then there was another guy from this company called Genentech, because he was saying they were brought in to make a new foot and mouth disease vaccine because the old vaccine caused outbreaks, and that's why they had this foot and mouth disease outbreak on Plum Island. It was a big thing, and it was like this massive foot and mouth disease outbreak. They had to incinerate every animal in the whole island, and it was because of that vaccine that Eric Traub had given them.
Again, they're getting rid of all the animals, therefore we have no way to create resistance. Yeah. See, if any of them survive, who survives the longest? They're saying they're 100% die. Well, we only know that they kill 100%. So that's a concept I'm trying to get across to people now, so we don't lose our entire protein supply of meat, and all that. I'm trying to teach people about MMR, your measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Concept. No kid has ever gotten mumps, rubella, and measles at the same time.
Yeah.
Yet they go and challenge their child's immune system with 3 of them at once.
And you know what I noticed about that vaccine that really spoke to me?
I can't wait to hear it.
Is that they were using lyophilized strains, which was dry frozen, and in Eric Traub's early work and the work on insulin, they were doing all this research on lyophilization. They were saying that it caused potentiation of delayed reactivity.
There you go. And the autism spectrum is born.
That. So those lyophilized, he was saying, and Eric Traub actually, he had a paper talking about how these. I'll get it. I have it right here. It was
mine are in boxes. I've moved 5 times in 4 years. Imagine what my files look like.
He was talking about how these lyophilized strains are problematic. Like they're finicky and they cause problems. It was in a French paper. It was written in French. I had to translate it, and I have his entire collection of published research, and I've translated to English every paper he ever published.
Oh gosh, that's wonderful.
Whether it was in German, this one in particular that I'm talking about was in French. It was called Vegetable Products as Vectors of Foot and Mouth Disease Virus. And he was talking about how the lyophilized strains are problematic. He said the dried the dried virus may retain its virulence for at least 105 days. I mean, he was talking about how it was just a problem that these lyophilized strains and insulremes. I have those papers too. I have those translated to English where they're talking about how it caused delayed it stays, avirulent for a time, and then way down the road it reactivates.
Latent, Yeah.
So they're using lyophilized strains when they shouldn't be. And I mean, even if they weren't, it would still be problematic. But the fact that they're using those is a big deal, and that's not good at all. And I know a girl whose son had it and then developed the autism right after. She's like, I knew it was a shot.
So you saw that. That's wonderful.
And I totally understand what you're talking about. But Insulremes, his bioweapons lab over in Nazi Germany, they knew all about how to cause this delayed reactivity, and that's why that foot and mouth disease outbreak happened much later. There was also these LCM virus epidemics that were rocking the United States for a long time, starting in the 60s, and that was kind of like one of these. It seemed to be also another case of this delayed reactivity thing. Even after he confessed to being a double agent, the guy who interrogated him he suggested, or he recommended that he be prosecuted to the fullest extent, which would have been a death sentence or something akin to life in prison and never getting out. They sent him back to West Germany to run another bioweapons lab, and they were letting him, even after they were letting him come back to the United States to visit Plum Island, to also take part in activities.
I read that. It's all in your book.
Yeah. And to attend conferences on virology, and they were sending him dangerous viruses and stuff. And it was like he was over there running that place like an animal house, like just partying his butt off with his vice president. And then they got that embezzlement case going because there was this massive. They were doing so much crime over there. There was a big embezzlement thing going on under his leadership, and he avoided jail time by paying a fee, but he got a prison sentence and a criminal record, and yet the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, still employed him. The United Nations still employed him. Told him, okay, go to Iran. We're gonna set up a foot and mouth disease vaccine lab there, and he was showing them all these bioweaponeering techniques and stuff, and it was like I'll tell you, he was showing this guy. It was so crazy. Oh, and here's a quote. He was happy to see foot and mouth disease spreading freely. He says a study of serological variation of foot and mouth disease virus is particularly rewarding in a large country where the disease can spread rather freely, more or less unhampered by mass vaccination and sanitary measures. And so later on, though, I want to read you this. Later on, he's working with this guy, G.K. Kanhai. He's showing them. Okay, So there's a paper that he did with this guy called "Behavior of Foot and Mouth Disease Virus on Serial Passage in Different Kinds of Cells: A Contribution to Experimental Epidemiology at Cell Level." So she's showing this guy all these
serial passage. Yeah.
He's showing these guys all these weaponizations.
You're listening.
Listen to what he says, though. He says, okay, in the course of this work with cells, observations were made which may have a bearing on certain epidemiological events in the field. The epidemiological phenomena under consideration are natural retrogression and termination of epizootics. B, increase in potency of the causative agent. C, virus adaptation to certain species of animals and escalation or decrease of infectivity and pathogenicity for other species. D, different affinity of virus strains for certain cells. E, differences in susceptibility among individual animals of the same species. F, reduced susceptibility in undernourished individuals. G, different behavior of different virus types. H, persistent infection. And I, serological variation.
Yeah.
It's like all the stuff that you need.
Encyclopedia in one study.
So this was when he was in Iran working for the United Nations. And and he's teaching this guy all this stuff. And it's like, this is all you need to know to have a master bioweapons program. You know what I mean? It's like they used, he's like, and you know, he knew all the tricks of the trade. And it's like, what you do is you set up a lab and you say, this is a vaccine lab that covers us.
It would take $10,000 to make a bioweapon today if you just go to the right. All you have to do is go to the right companies and order this, that, or the other, you know?
Yeah, you can buy all this stuff off the internet.
Yeah,
basically.
you absolutely can.
And what was his name? Well, it was a friend of Konstantin Shumakov. He made poliovirus from scratch. Yeah. He made poliovirus from scratch using the different segments.
That's right.
Set up
that
as like
was the very first recreation of because poliovirus is so simple. You can make it with one hand, you know.
His name was Eckert. His name was Eckert Wimmer, and he set it up. He set up these segments, and it was almost like a chemical formula. And he was using cell-free extracts, and he was getting this thing to replicate and cause, you know, polio.
Yeah.
And I've had all these other people that talk to me that don't believe that any viruses exist, and it's just like such a pain in the butt to try and explain it to them.
And we have other problems. The only good part of this, again, we were talking about that is like a stealth virus. That is the virus. It acts literally is putting on an outer coating, you might say, that makes the body tolerate it rather than respond to it. So it thinks it's like a worm, a parasite.
And that antigen they noticed had it was like so close to the host tissue.
That's
like
right.
The myelin, I guess you could say, or something of the brain matter. Some kind of, I think it was something in the brain matter, but it was tissue. Human tissue. It was so close to it, but it was nasty at the same time, and it would basically cause stealth because it was like incorporating your tissue into its own makeup, and that's what these fusion proteins do.
You can actually, they won't even go to autopsies now, but you can actually see the merging of. Yeah.
It's like I tell people, I explain it like imagine something.
Mesothelioma.
Imagine a ball of lipid that is extremely hot that melts your skin as it comes into contact with it and tears off your skin and incorporates it into its own makeup. That's kind of like what these do. They're just not hot, but it would be kind of a similar idea. Because if it was really hot and it was tearing pieces of your skin off, you'd see what it was actually doing at the cellular level. This is what it does. It comes into contact with your tissue, fuses with it, tears pieces of it off, incorporates it into itself, and it uses that as a shield almost to evade the immune system. Would that be?
I like to try and make this more accessible to people listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when people say, well, how does cancer kill? Like, it's just a big lump. How does it do that? So I use the example. It's a teaching tool.
Yeah.
Imagine you have stomach cancer and the stomach is producing, as you know, gastric acids, hydrochloric acid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And then imagine, can you see me? I'm sorry, I had a little.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Imagine, if you will, so it metastasizes and goes to your brain.
Yeah.
Now you have pieces of stomach that are digesting your brain with hydrochloric acid. That's what cancer is. That's what cancer does in other parts of your body.
Yeah.
So people need to understand how deadly this stuff is.
Yeah.
And and one of the things they don't do, and am trying to promote, is if you have any lumps or any bumps or anything like that, in general, get them removed. Set them up in test tubes. I'm trying to spread this everywhere. Make tissue cultures of them. Set them in a batch of test tubes. You want to go and do your chemo, experiment on the living tissue from that tumor out of the body. Don't use the whole body for a test tube.
Yeah.
See which chemo works, if any chemo. Of course, the whole idea is that we have to do chemo. We have to do radiation. We have to do, as you know, we have to fight it like that. I think we have gone down a very primitive trail. It's disgusting. The pain and the suffering, all because of people having a certain mindset on how to handle cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use a simple example. My son is taking dangerous colchicine and everything for gout attacks. And it's so deadly, how much damage it can do to the body, liver, so on. When you can have a half a teaspoon of baking soda will relieve you of the pain of the gout attack. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you, and also I did read something about how they give massive doses of these chemos because in the trials they don't figure out the dosages. They just go to the highest dose they could possibly do or something, and it has something to do with them making money. It has something to do with the money they make off it or something,
Well, when their studies, of course, they're using mice or rodents, or they're using hamsters or whatever. They will do a body dose on them. Now, the metabolic rate of a mouse or a rat is so rapid compared to us, and they clear it out of their body sooner. But they've forgotten. I'm going to give you an example. That there's a manatee called Snooty that was in Bradenton, Florida. It lived to be 60 years old, more than 60. I fed it when it was a baby, all right, when it was at the municipal pier, and they finally moved it to a great big aquarium that was really lovely, a science center in Bradenton. Yeah. And manatee remembered me when I came 25 years later to visit it. It almost got out of the tank. It was so excited to see me. It recognized me.
That's so cute.
It was really adorable. But here's the thing. They had forgotten how to feed it properly, had a skin condition because they had stopped giving it apples. You see, it's like they lost a page in the handbook. Yeah. Now I'm going to go a little further. The manatee, I don't know how long he would have lived, but he died of suffocation because another page of the handbook was missing. So when new handlers came along to drain the pool, they opened the drain the whole way, and it sucked the poor manatee down, and he could not escape. And suffocated to death.
That's terrible.
We're seriously, our medical profession is the same thing. We've lost a lot of the pages of the handbook, and they're being taught rote, and they're not being taught why. Yeah. And as you know, we treat symptoms instead of treating the cause. Yeah. They've forgotten all about treating the cause, and so you have to go to osteopaths or somewhere else. But the medical profession is really, really corrupt now. Yeah, it's a terrible. And they've lost pages of the handbook. Another concept. See, as people are listening to this, I want them to have takeaways. For example, almost always you're going to have to take this medicine every day for the rest of your life, right? Yeah. The body adapts. The body changes, and if something else builds up,
I remember them telling me that I had to take this thyroid medication for the rest of my life, and I ended up changing my diet and stopping that medication, and I still don't take it today. I don't take any of that, and I'm fine.
Well, I wish I had that same experience. I have to take it.
I was levothyroxine. It was called.
It's levothyroxine. That is the generic form of Synthroid.
Yeah, Synthroid. That's exactly.
But I'm taking I was taking it. They had me on a lot because I have no, basically, I was subjected to so much radiation. I have to be very careful because I can get cancer easily. My hands, for example, got all burned up with it. They had the wrong. I was working with a new X-ray machine that they brought in, and it was calibrated wrong. It was putting out like 50 times the dose it should. And I'm putting mice under the thing, holding them down with, Wow. And I'm thinking that it's just directed there, but my hands peeled, all the mice died, that particular experiment. And then I realized I was exposed. So I started studying how to avoid that. And I brought a few things I wanted to share with everybody that can help you overcome some of we have long COVID going on and everything like that. Please, people, don't take any more of these damnable shots. You know what they're doing to us. But PQQ is one of the things that I wanted to share with you. You know what that is?
Yeah. That's the one that helps your the
mitochondria.
Yeah, the mitochondria. Right. What do you call it? Telomeres or something, right?
It will help. And the point is that we have so many toxins and everything in our systems. Again, if people are taking how many medications do you take? Let's start. How old are you?
Oh, I'm 40.
Okay. And I'm 81. And
I don't have to take any medications. Like I have some stuff that I take for sleep, but it's not something I need. I just sometimes take it for sleep, and that's the clonidine, which is like a blood pressure medicine.
Well, I can help you to even get off of that. You know how many?
I don't have to take.
You know how many medications I take?
Yeah, how many?
None, except thyroid. I've got.
Okay.
I have no thyroid, so I have to take something.
Oh, okay. You got okay. Yeah.
It's gone, completely wiped out. I was in Chernobyl. In Hammerfest, we were there when the Chernobyl clouds came over Norway. All that rain came down.
Oh, wow.
Knocked my thyroid out. And you can get thyroid cancer. So,
I read all about that. I read all about that incident. Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
I've got a little story to tell you about, and I've told this a number of places, but a lot of people haven't heard it yet. So we're there, and the Soviets only tell us a couple days later what's going on. And here, so they took the milk off the shelves, and you can't drink the milk for like weeks, and they have to feed the cattle something, has to haul in feed, from other places because everything's contaminated. And the reindeer they can't eat for 20 years because they're eating, as you know, the reindeer moss, which soaked it up. It's highly radioactive.
Man. Poor animals.
They had the salmon run going on. This is July. The salmons were glowing in the dark. What are they going to do with all those salmon? Then they're usually they would, at least if they were slightly contaminated, they could have made them into cattle feed.
Yeah.
In Norway, in the 80s, in 70s and the 80s, the fish tasted like the fish meal was fed to everything. So the beef tastes fishy, the chicken tastes fishy, the eggs taste fishy, everything.
Man.
Yeah. But anyway, they couldn't use it.
Yeah.
But they didn't throw it away. What are they going to do? They sold it to the United States, and we ate it.
Oh, man. Not surprised at all. Not surprised.
You know why? We still don't check for radioactivity in our food. So Fukushima salmon, and any other big fish, they're pouring all that in there, and you have those fish there, and they go and harvest them, and they get canned up, as pink salmon, in cans and so on, and tuna.
Here's another interesting thing. They're finding too now microplastics. They're calling them microplastics in the rainwater. Okay, there was an article about it. Rainwater
it's in newborn babies, everything.
Yeah, and they're saying so. It was an article about it being in the rainwater in the Rocky Mountains, right? And they showed a sample of it. I went to the Carnicom Institute site and they're an organization, a nonprofit that deals with investigating the Morgellons disease. Okay,
That's wonderful that somebody's doing that.
Okay, so that the sample.
I want to. We got to go back to that because I got some theories, and I'd like to hear yours on that.
Yeah, I put an article out, and I can send it to you after, where I show a sample from the rainwater, right?
Yeah.
It's under a microscope, the microplastics they're talking about. I show a sample from the Morgellons sample, the wire things coming out of people.
Yep.
It's the same exact thing. So they're putting, and then I started doing research into this DARPA place, the DARPA organization, and I started looking back, going into all of the research and publications that they were citing in this DARPA document, talking about coming up with countermeasures. They're called them medical countermeasures, right? And so what I realized was this Morgellons thing was actually a medical countermeasure / vaccine / treatment that they just release into the environment. And now it's so there was all this research I found where it's called self-replicating nanowires.
Now you're talking good sense, because these things can replicate, and if they assimilate enough living tissue, which I think they can do because they're very complex, then they can become alive. And these poor people are suffering from something in a synthetic life form,
Yeah, and so you had written that book about cyborgs. Right?
Oh, you read it? Did you read it?
I didn't read it yet, but my job at Trine Day is making videos on TikTok, so I make a video for every book. It's like a 30-second ad, right? And I use not the abstract, but the details of the book, right? The paragraph. And so I saw, and you were talking about how as humans become 51% or more machines, and I'm thinking to myself, well, how are they going to make people into machines? And then I started thinking about that Morgellons stuff.
That's right.
Nanowires, and I'm like, oh man,
it's all going to be fused together.
This is dark stuff.
Let me tell you, DARPA is way, way ahead. The only answer to the government, which wants to really control all this,
mm-hmm.
it's like a helmet on your head, for example, and you will have to do what the helmet tells you. It will overtake everything. I want to tell you that Elon Musk has been demonized. He's the only civilian answer to this. He's way behind, by the way, because they keep stopping him from doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He's the only answer to DARPA. That's it. Everybody else is scared to death of them and all that. And God knows I've studied Musk to make sure whose side he's on, and I understand exactly what he's doing. This is a guy who got bullied. This guy is not going to be bullied by the government, okay? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, what he's doing with Neuralink is really remarkable, because by doing individual inserts into the brain, DARPA has no control over that. They're using helmets that overwhelm your brain. You see, but when it's individual, these monkeys, for example, even the people training the monkey to use its brain to play Pong or whatever on the screen.
Yeah.
The monkey has to turn it on. The person can't do it. The monkey licks this little metal plate and it turns it on.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, what he's trying to do is develop a mechanism where only you can turn it on for yourself. No outsider can. That's completely different from what the government is doing, where they want to be able to turn on anybody to do what they want.
And they want to be able to control. There was another Trine Day author who wrote a book called Battle Space of Mind, and it's AI, cybernetics, and information warfare.
Well, in my book, Letters to the Cyborgs, and it's
I'd love to read it. I would love to read it.
Well, for example, I'm going to give you a little taste. Everything I wrote in there was in 2015, and a lot of it has already come true in certain areas. But here's why it's so easy to understand what you're doing. The whole concept of cyborg and everything I'm going to, everything was based on what we already had in 2015. All right.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm going to give you an example. We soon we will have transmitted to us ads into our brains.
Mm-hmm.
And only if you pay a small fee can you stop it. And by the way, they'll be transmitted at night. If you have a cell phone or anything, it'll be transmitted into your brains, and all kinds of commercials. You won't know it. If you don't want to be subliminally influenced, you can pay another small fee. All right. In other words, to stop commercials, even as you're walking along the street, they can be flashed in front of your eyes very quickly. And then you'll want to go eat a donut as you're passing a donut shop. You will have to eat a donut.
You know what I noticed too? Before it was you talk about something that they could sell you, you'd see an ad for that because your phones are listening to
Right.
your stuff. I've noticed I'll be thinking about something, I won't say anything, but then I'll go to my computer and I'll see an ad for what I was just thinking about.
Yeah, so be very careful. So we have to have answers to this. Again, you have Boston Dynamics, you have DARPA working way, way ahead of Musk. Musk has, as you know, his own small robot.
Yeah.
It's only supposed to be obeyed. It will only obey you is the whole concept. Instead of the government will not be able to turn the robot against you.
Yeah.
Won't be able to turn it on or off. But their robots, their little cute little dog with the machine gun attached, and everything.
Yeah.
And there's tiny drones that are the size of mosquitoes that can come in and give you any shot. If you decide you don't want a shot, you're going to get it anyway.
Oh my God. I haven't seen that stuff. I have not seen that stuff, but I do know they were also talking about giving people shots through the mosquitoes.
Well, that's what I'm talking. Well, this is the other thing. Here we have Gates is financing the breeding of in Central and South America, different labs, millions of mosquitoes. He wants to fight dengue fever. Ever since he started that in about 2016, 2017, we've had more dengue fever than ever before.
Oh yeah, now there's
you can't release all these. Just like in the film Jurassic Park, nature will find a way. So they're releasing all these males. Those males are more males than we've ever had before. We have a huge population.
Yeah, they even did an article that said, the genetically modified mosquito experiment may have failed and made the problem worse instead. There was a Newsweek.
And you're telling me that this man is eugenicist. His parents, father,
Rockefeller,
Parenthood, and all that.
Rockefeller Institute. His grandfather was the Rockefeller Institute.
My first mice were sent to me by Rockefeller Institute.
Yeah. Oh.
When I was 15 years old. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, what's the guy's name? He took part in that meningococcus vaccine program that I talked about in my book. His name was I forget his name, but he had a big hand in that experimental meningococcus vaccine program that they did down at Fort Riley. That was Bill Gates' grandfather. Yeah, well, so that's what we're looking at. And when he even mentioned it's been spread everywhere in a TED talk that he gave, how, vaccines are going to help control the population. This is the Rockefeller Institute history book. And I forget his name, but he was part of the original bunch of people. Well, you go to names. I go to programs. I go to which exists still. Anyway, the reason I mentioned the cyborg stuff is this is coming up under us. We don't even know what's going on. No, I know. A lot of people don't realize that the government has chips now that all your rental cars have chips. They can turn them off. So, if they have to. Same for planes. The only thing they're not able to turn off yet, and they want to, are Teslas. All you're going to hear is bad stuff about Tesla. The government does not like Tesla because it is independent. So you're going to see Teslas burning. Let's forget about the fact that sometimes those are on purpose. Just to get it down. So I found out a lot of things about Musk because I had to find out if he was the real deal. Good or bad, right? Yeah.
so many bad things that finally dawned on me. Wait a minute, there's so much I'm finding is not true about him.
Yeah.
And then I searched his history. Finally, I contacted him. I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I don't want anybody else bothering, but there are ways that the man answers you.
Really? You got a hold of him?
More than that. Well, here's a good way of saying it. When I turned 80, I bought 3 shares of Tesla. I don't have very much money,
Yeah.
because I hoped to go to the shareholders meeting. Then I found out the only way you can go, of course, is by lottery, and I missed it. And he saw I was 80 years old, and I wanted to go for my 80th birthday. He sent me a ticket.
Wow.
Yeah, just like happy birthday, He did it through Jared Birchall, his financier that he has, who runs a lot of his programs. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Well, even more, when I got up there, they escorted me to the 3rd row. I'm an 80-year-old woman at the time, with 3 chairs, and I'm sitting behind the 2 rows of executives, of all the executives, and I have all the film and everything like that. It was just wonderful. And then
that's crazy.
I went up to shake his hand, but just when I was going to shake his hand, I didn't quite make it. I was ready. I said hi, and that's all. They brought out his little boy, put him on little boy on his shoulders, and he took his little boy out. But I saw how he has big muscles in his arms. You can see scars on his face from when he was beaten up and bullied when he was in school and everything. And
wow,
yeah, he's a sweetheart. He really is. And I'm not going to go into more detail because I've treasured the. I don't have a lot of contacts with him, but I know that he's very interested in helping humanity, and just don't believe the lies.
We need people like that so badly, and it's like.
Well, he's very playful, and he's a kid at heart. He's on the high order.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I've always got from him. Like he was always, you could always see that blink of that spirit of humanity.
It's there. And he's been hurt a lot by people and betrayed and all kind of thing. I have too. Maybe that's why I have an affinity for him. I had to find out if it's a real thing, because I get lied about a lot, and all I want to ever do is help people.
Yeah, and same here.
But he's got the same mentality.
Yeah,
he's got the same mentality. So I was living in Austin. You'll see that the book that was written here, I finally got sick of researchers. Oh, I believe this that you said, but I don't believe that because I've done my research, or it'll hurt their book, so their book won't be valuable anymore if my book comes out. So that, so Lee Harvey Oswald and me. Now, what I finally got some brains in my head. Why am I going to researchers who have axes to grind and they have history and so on? Just 1 second, I'm gonna let the kitty out. Here we go.
Yeah, no, I've got. Well, I was just doing a video. Where's the book that I had? Oh, here it is.
Okay, so I'm going to finish my little story. I'm going to interrupt you because
no problem. I was trying to cover for you.
Thank you so much. All right. So anyway, I'll give you a good example. Someone really loved my books. He said, but the problem is if I endorse your book, my book won't sell anymore. These are researchers. Why do they care about the truth? I've got the witnesses and everything. I finally got some brains in my head about seeing humanity. I might be good in science, and I put my first TV set together when I was 8. But as far as human relations, I like most guys can fail here and there, So I realized something. I need to go to attorneys. I need to show them. Trial attorneys look at evidence and they decide if it's real or not. Yeah. So this book, the foreword is written by Robert K. Tenenbaum, one of the #1 attorneys of the House Select Committee on Assassinations.
Oh, wow.
He found out that I had information that nobody had but him. Mm-hmm. So so we're close friends. it's been wonderful. And the other attorney here is Mark Mueller, who is an expert on the Martin Luther King thing. And he investigated me for a year, and he wrote the afterward and mentioned my memory and all this kind of thing, because he couldn't believe how many details I could remember and all that kind of thing. You bet I can. That's a glorious thing that God has given me. I give God the glory, because all around me, people my age are dying of senility, and Parkinson's and everything. And I brought some things to show people. But the reason I'm mentioning this, so then I ended up in Dallas making a deposition with the attorneys.
Yeah.
And I got a wonderful ovation from all these Dallasites, hundreds of them that had paid to see this. And my testimony about Lee Oswald being innocent, everything that happened to him under oath, is now in the Texas Portal of History online, the official online historical facts about Texas.
Yeah.
So we've got it, and it happened through attorneys. It did 20 years of trying to get it through researchers' heads. Well, I believe this part, but this part I don't because of so-and-so,
Funny that you mentioned attorneys, because John Loftus is also an attorney. The one who wrote the introduction of my book is also an attorney.
Well, they look at the evidence instead of saying, gee, does this conflict with all the things I've been told,
Yeah. I was just going to jump in and say, well, that brings us kind of full circle, because that's why you guys are here on McDuff Lives. It's because I'm an attorney. I'm a trial attorney.
There you go.
And it's been my mission to examine the unusual death by cancer of my dad at a very young age, and my suspicions that it's been weaponized cancer that killed him have driven.
What kind of cancer did you die from?
He died from the death certificate says kidney with metastasis, and what we were told it began in the pancreas, and then
that's it.
And it spread.
We began this thing with the pancreas.
So that's my contribution is I'm trying to use my forensic abilities to expose the truth, and you two are a couple of very, very good prime witnesses for my case.
Yeah,
so let me just say, I mean, and I'm going to wrap up the show at this point, because I'm only good for about an hour or so.
Okay, yeah.
I get exhausted, but
we can always do another one sometime, maybe.
Well, you guys have both agreed to come back next week, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I will. Yeah.
Is that right? There. All right, you'll be with us next week. Okay, so let's take a couple of minutes, if you like, to wrap up tonight, and then we'll see you guys next week. And by the way, I'm going to get your book. I'm going to get the hardcover one from my library, and then I'll do my forensic thing and see what I can come up with to help. Because what we're trying to do here is simply to spread the truth for the good of all the people of the world, and it's as simple as that. But it's a hell of a tough slog, as each one of us in our own ways have found out already. And thanks for everybody that's been watching tonight, and spread the word about Judy's book and Adam's book, The Sleeper Agent. Pick up a copy of my book about my dad, The McDuff Lives, at Amazon. All 3 books are available at Amazon, by the way. And with that, Adam, anything you'd like to add before we call it a night?
Well, I mean, I'll wrap this up by saying, we got us together in the hopes of kind of fleshing out this whole thing about cancer and viruses, and being able to use that as a biological weapon, or a weapon of assassination, so to speak. And of course, you have, me. I wrote this book and demonstrated that, yes, this is a known thing. This is just so well documented that there's absolutely no way that anybody can deny it. There's no way. And then you have Judyth. Who worked in it herself. That's a firsthand account. So, I mean, it's pretty solid here. And I think we are able to give John some answers here. while also educating everybody else, and it was brilliant. I would love to keep talking to you, afterwards too, and telling you some of my thoughts on some of these other things, maybe through email or something.
Well, maybe we could set up so we'll have it. I just moved, so all of my documents, I cannot pull files like you can, but I've got them too,
Yeah, and I can send. I
want to give God the glory because we're alive, that we had been executed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a bit. That's
were murdered.
That's a big deal for me too. I'm a very spiritual person, and God, to me, I praise God every day. I'm not religious, but I praise God every day, and all that I do. I think living to the best of our ability is one way that we praise God, but also just kind of directly, praising through a prayer or something, and making your own personal connection to it. You don't need dogmatic religion to do it. It's just like we are doing God's work here.
Well, the upshot of this is that we have a preponderance of people spiritually involved that want the truth. I'm just asking myself, where are all the atheists? I used to be an atheist, and I was.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and
I'm not
that
anymore.
has changed. That's too many wonderful things have happened to save my life and other things. Yeah. Impossible.
It's so wonderful to meet you. It's just like an honor to know you, and I would love to get to know you more and show you some stuff that I got. Maybe some of these English paper or these translations or whatever it is. So that I'm so glad and grateful that we were able to meet tonight, and
it's been wonderful.
It's been wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait to do this again.
Thank you, Dr. John.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Adam, Judy, and we will see you here. Reconvene at the same time, same place next week, the 25th of July. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. for our usual Friday chat. So hope you can join me then. Bye now.
Goodbye, everybody.
In the mirror, and guess what I see? A baby blue-eyed spirit who seeks your everything. And my mind is chaotic. I choose to be free. Sometimes I just can't help myself. Sometimes I just can't help myself. And my mind is dangerous. That's who I'll always be. Mind is dangerous, and that's who I'll always be. Hideous devastations, lifeless serenity. My abstract emotions somehow get the best of me. Lord, take away my sorrow. Lord, take away my pain. Erasing life tomorrow ain't the motive to the game. erasing life tomorrow. Ain't the motive to the game.